Hello everyone, if you're new here, welcome. My name is Keisha, this is Jovi, and today I'm going to be talking about all the books on my fall TBR. Are you excited to talk about the books? Or do you just want mama's attention? That's what it is, I know it. Don't like when mama films. I know. I don't think I have ever put out a seasonal TBR before because I am a monthly TBR girly through and through. I like to have set books that I want to read each month, but I am really a seasonal mood reader and I love watching everybody's fall TBRs. So while I know that it's not realistic that I'm going to get to all of these books, these are the books that I'm most excited about this fall season, and I wanted to share those with you. I have 25 books that I've broken up into some different genres today, so hopefully you will be able to find some fall recommendations for your fall TBR too. The first genre is fantasy, and this may come as a surprise to some of you all because I don't read a ton of fantasy, but I have read some that I've really enjoyed, and I do have a lot this season that I'm really intrigued to get to. But these are like my top 5. The first one is probably one you all have heard of before, and that is Caraval by Stephanie Garber. So this book has been around BookTube and in the world for ages now, it seems, and I have yet to get to it. It has been on my TBR probably for at least 5 years on my physical TBR because this was one of the first books that I ever hauled when I first joined the book community online. But if you don't know what this book is about, all that I really can remember is that it follows 2 sisters and there's a deadly game. I think one of the sisters goes to Caraval and the other sister is trying to rescue her. This is a dark, magical fantasy, romance, and mystery weaved all into one, and I just know I'm gonna love this one. I just finally need to pick it up. The next book that I have been itching to get to ever since I hauled it is Hotel Magnifique by Emily J. Taylor. And it's really fitting that I'm talking about this one after Caraval because it's also said to be for fans of Caraval and the Night Circus. So if you like either one of those books and haven't picked this one up yet, it might be a good idea to do so. I didn't mention, but Caraval is a YA fantasy, and so is this one. Hotel Magnifique is about this magical hotel that travels to a new destination every day. And there are 2 sisters that really want to go to the hotel. I'm sure I would want to go if this existed in real life, but it is like very costly to get in to be able to go and experience the hotel. And so instead they decide to join the staff. But beneath the glamour, there are some dark secrets and other sinister things going on here. I think this also has a little bit of a romance involved as well with a doorman named Bell, which I love that his name is Bell and he's a doorman. Like in my head, I'm like bellhop. And so I don't know, it does something to my brain. I'm very excited to get to this one, and this author has another new release coming out soon that I'm also excited for, but I wanted to check this one out first. The next book I don't own yet, but I have been really excited for this one too. It's called Twin Crowns by Katherine Doyle. This is the first in a YA fantasy series that has been out for a few years now, but I've never really heard anybody talk about it. I do think there's a little bit of a magical rom-com-y element to it as well. It follows sisters that were separated at birth, and one of them is kind of like a baddie, and one of them is more of like a princess girly type. There are dual points of view, it's enemies to lovers, forced proximity, low stakes, and the princess bride vibes. Sign me up. The next book is one that I have been back and forth on so much because I just don't know if it's going to get too dark for me. But ever since I read the Belladonna series, I've been trying to find something to fill that void. And this book just kind of sounded within the same vein, and that is One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig. So I finally bit the bullet and got this one. This is a gothic fantasy with Caraval vibes as far as the world building goes. And also I've heard it has really lyrical writing, which I'm here for. It's also, like I said, giving Belladonna vibes for me because it follows this girl named Elspeth. It says Elspeth needs a monster. The monster might be her. So she has this nightmare trapped inside of her head, and she also lives in this kingdom that there's like this dark magic infecting it. So she is on this quest to cure this eerie Mistlock kingdom. There's also fake dating, and I do think, just for anybody that wants to know, there are some spicy scenes in this because I do think this is adult. I think it's been marketed as an adult fantasy, so you just never know with that. I don't think it's too spicy because I would not have it if it was. I haven't heard that it is, so hopefully it's not, but I think there may be like a couple scenes here and there just so you know if that bothers you. But I love a good gothic fantasy and obviously anything that's giving belladonna vibes, so I'm really hoping this fits the bill for me. And the last fantasy book that I have on this list is The Prison Healer by Lynette Noni. I remember when this book was like coming out, I remember the anticipation for it, but I feel like I never heard anybody read it and talk about it. But recently I have seen, I can't remember who it was. I think it might have been Madison. I'll pop up a picture on the screen, but I think it was Mads Reads a Lot or something like that on Instagram. She had posted about this series and just hyped it up, and I was like, okay, I remember seeing this book around and I have never read it before or heard anybody else talk about it, so I really want to get to it. It is a dark YA fantasy with dynamic characters. There's also trials, which that always gives me the Hunger Games vibes if you talk about trials of any kind. And I think there's also a slow burn romance, which is my favorite kind. So it follows our main character, Kiva, and Kiva works as a prison healer in Death Prison. One day, this terminally ill rebel queen is captured, and Kiva is tasked with keeping her alive so she can undergo these trials. And these trials are elemental challenges of air, fire, water, and earth. And these trials are assigned to the most dangerous criminals. So Kiva ends up taking the queen's place in the trials. If she wins, she and the queen are granted their freedom, but no one has ever survived. With an incurable plague sweeping Zalendov, a mysterious new inmate fighting for Kiva's heart, and a prison rebellion brewing, Kiva can't escape the terrible feeling that her trials have only just begun. I think this is going to be such a fun time. All right, next we are going to move into romance. So I have really been enjoying clean romances this year, and in the past couple of years, I've really found some authors that I've loved. And this is one series that I've really been itching to get to, and that is the Sweater Weather series that's written by 7 different authors. And the first book is Just Don't Fall by Emma St. Clair. This book absolutely 10,000% will get read this year because I am so hyped up for it. This is a fake dating, second chance, brother's best friend hockey romance that reminds me a lot of Courtney Walsh's Holidays with Heart series. When I read the synopsis of this book, I was like, check, 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 sign me up. Like, already sold, because anything that gives me the Holidays with Heart, Courtney Walsh series vibes, or Courtney Walsh in general vibes has my whole heart. I have very high expectations for this book. This is a 5-star prediction, so I'm really hoping that Emma St. Clair can just fill the void in my heart for wanting more books like Courtney Walsh writes. The next book I have is Very Sincerely Yours by Kerry Winfrey. I have absolutely adored some of Kerry Winfrey's books, particularly Just Another Love Song and Faking Christmas. This is a highly underrated author in my opinion, so if you haven't checked her out, please do so and start with Just Another Love Song. But this book I'm so stinking excited about. I have been waiting, I feel like almost a year to read this because I skipped out on it last fall. But this is like You've Got Mail meets Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. Are you kidding me? Typically, Kerry Winfrey writes clean or closed door, at least romances. So I'm assuming this will be either clean or closed door. So that is safe for me. There's also pop culture references in this one. And this is about a girl named Teddy. And she works at this vintage toy store. And she's recently been dumped by her longtime boyfriend. So she's kind of just trying to find her footing and figure out her life. And then we have our male lead named Everett. And he has the cutest job. So he's essentially like Mr. Rogers. He hosts this children's show. And these kids always write into him like asking him for advice and all this different stuff. So Teddy ends up writing to him like the kids do, and they end up having a correspondence. So there's where like the You've Got Mail vibes comes in. But this just sounds like such a sweet fun time, and it is set in the fall. So I think this is definitely one of my most highly anticipated to get to as well. Next, my friend Jordan recently told me about this cute book that has also been turned into a Hallmark movie, and it's called Pumpkin Everything by Beth Labonte. So again, this does have a Hallmark movie adaptation, and it's set in a small town in New Hampshire. It follows our main character, Amy, who is a horror author who has recently called off her fall wedding, and she also has writer's block. So she's not having a good time over here. Not to mention her grandfather has recently been injured, and so she must return home to her small town and take care of her grandfather. And while she's there, she runs into a guy where I think they were like childhood best friends, and I think maybe they became lovers, or he was her crush or something like that. So it is a childhood best friends to lovers second chance romance, which is one of my favorites. And I do believe this author writes cleaner closed door romance as well, because again, that's typically what I gravitate towards. So this sounds like such a sweet fall read, and I cannot wait to pick it up. Another fun fall series is Kiss Me Now by Melanie Jacobson. So two things about this. One, I think Melanie Jacobson has her own series with this book. It's like the Creekside series. And there's one train that follows like the townspeople, and there's one train that follows the siblings. I think the one that follows the siblings is the one that's recently been released with another author. I think her name is Brittany Larson. So you can go either route with this, but it is the first book in this like world. So it is a clean rom-com, and it follows our main character, Brooke. She gardens with her elderly neighbor, and that elderly, sweet little old granny leaves her family's property. Obviously and understandably, the grandson is upset about this. So he starts investigating. He is a private investigator as his career, but he starts investigating like, who in the world did my grandmother leave this property to? Why did she not leave it to me? Why is it this neighbor? Like, there's got to be something going on here. So this is an enemies to lovers matchmaking grandma. We love that. Witty banter, endearing characters, happily ever after type rom-com. And again, I'm just here for all the fun, cozy Hallmark vibes. The last romance that I have is Falling in Love by Eric Branscom, and this follows a former Marine. He has taken over his family's inn after the sudden loss of his father, and he meets this struggling romance author who has lost her family. I think she's widowed and an orphan, and she's really just trying to find her place in the world. She offers to help him with the inn in exchange for room and board, and so thus we have a romance that ensues. There's obviously forced proximity, there's found family, there's puppies, we love a good puppy, and there's redemption. So another sweet rom-com that I'm really excited for. Moving on to the next genre, we have cozy mysteries. I love a good cozy mystery. I've really gotten into this genre over the past couple of years, so I have found some really fun fall ones that I'm so excited for. The first one is going to be Death Checked Out by Leah Dobrinska. I've not heard anybody talk about this one, but the vibes of this cover are like so immaculate and so cute, so I'm very excited for it. So this book follows Greta Plank, library director in the small lakeside town of Larkspur, Wisconsin, and she prefers her rose-tinted glasses, extra rosy, thank you very much. It's how she copes with the hard stuff in life, like her sister's death and her ex-boyfriend's deception. But Greta's cheery resolve takes a hit when she stumbles upon a dead body on her way home from work. So this is going to be a really fun library mystery. I love fall library mysteries. I read another one last year, so if you haven't checked out Death Overdue by Alison Brooke, I recommend that one as well. But this is giving similar vibes, so I'm really excited to check out Death Checked Out. The next one is Be My Ghost by Carol J. Perry, and I am going to read the synopsis on the back for this one because it just sounds adorable. It says, Maureen Dougherty and her golden retriever Finn have taken possession of a charming old inn, only to discover that it's already possessed by tenants whose lease on life already ran out. Maureen's career as a sportswear buyer hits a snag just before Halloween when the department store declares bankruptcy. Meanwhile, Finn's lost his way as a guide dog after flunking his test for being too friendly and easily distracted. Sadly, only one of them can earn unemployment. So Maureen's facing a winter of discontent in Boston when she realizes she can't afford her apartment. Salvation comes when she receives a mysterious inheritance, an inn in Haven, Florida, a quaint, scenic town on the Gulf of Mexico hidden away from the theme parks. Maureen believes it's a good place to make a fresh start with a new business venture, but she gets more than she bargained for when she finds a dead body on her property, and meets some of the inn's everlasting tenants in the form of ghosts who offer their otherworldly talents in order to help her solve the mystery. This sounds like a very cute, fun time. I don't love a lot of paranormal books, but if they're light and give me vibes of the CBS show Ghosts, like this one does, then I'm here for it. So I have been putting this one off, and I think it's about time that I get to it. Next, we have A Doomful of Sugar by Katherine Bruns. This is the first book in the Maple Syrup Mystery series. After the death of her father, Layla is back in her hometown to run her family's maple tree farm and uncover who killed him. Honestly, the cover of this one got me. Then we have another cozy mystery that's giving me Ghosts CBS show vibes, and that is Night of the Living Dead by E.J. Copperman, which is the first in the Haunted Guest House mystery. This one says 7 bedrooms, 4 baths, 2 ghosts. Newly divorced Allison Kirby wants a second chance of herself and her 9-year-old daughter, so she's returned to her hometown on the Jersey Shore to transform a fixer-upper into a charming and hopefully profitable guest house. But when a bump on the head leaves her seeing not only stars but spirits, Allison realizes the real challenges she's facing is out of this world. The two residing ghosts are Maxie Malone, the foul-tempered former owner of the house, who has definite opinions about Allison's design plans, and Paul Harrison, a private eye who'd been working for Maxie. Both died in the house on the same night. The official cause of death was suicide, but the ghosts insist they were murdered, and they need Allison to find out who killed them, or the next ghost in the guest house will be Allison herself. And the last cozy mystery I have here is not the first in the series, so while the past ones have been the first, this is the third in the series, and that is the third in the League of Literary Ladies mystery by Kylie Logan, and this one is The Legend of Sleepy Harlow. I have loved this series so far. This follows a group of ladies who are all neighbors and they don't get along. So they are court ordered to have book club together and book discussion. So now they're actually at this point in the series becoming friends and getting along because they're having to solve murders that are happening in their cozy little town, which may not be so cozy when there's murders, but I don't know. They're cozy murder mysteries. You know how it is. So this one follows, the book that they're reading is The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. The previous two they did were Murder on the Orient Express and A Tale of Two Cities. So the titles of each book correspond with a punny title for those books. So this one takes place around Halloween. And again, we have Washington Irving's spooky classic, The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, which of course is like the Headless Horseman. And I think there's going to be an equivalent to that in this story. I love how this author just weaves classic literature into these stories. I will say that if you haven't read the books that are like hinted at in the title, you should probably read them before you read these cozies if you want to, or at least like research them, because I feel like they do spoil a little bit of those stories. So if you have no interest in reading The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, then no worries, just read this book. But if you do want to read it before or know the story before, then check it out before picking this up. Now we're moving into middle grade books, specifically spooky middle grade. So here on my channel for years and years, I feel like I talked a lot about spooky middle grade books. I have taken a little bit of a step back from that, but I do still love a good spooky middle grade book every now and then, and I do still have some on my TBR to get to. So the first one is the last book of Lindsay Currie's that I need to read of all of her published work, and that is The Girl in White. This one follows our main character. Her name is Mallory, and she has just moved to this new town that is known for being like one of the most haunted towns. They have this legend about this character called Sweet Molly, and the town is getting ready to celebrate the anniversary of this local legend. And while all this is happening, Molly starts to have nightmares. She is losing chunks of time, and she feels like she's being watched. So I'm excited to get to this one. Lindsay Currie is just like the queen of spooky middle grade. She does a really good job of weaving legend and local lore and history a little bit into her stories too. So if you like a good like ghost legend lore history type of like spooky middle grade story, definitely check this one out. Also, it is giving me The Haunting of Adeline Jones by Phil Hicks vibes as well. So if you enjoyed that one, you might also enjoy this one. Next up, we have a new book that actually, I think when you guys are seeing this video, it comes out tomorrow. So it comes out on September 3rd, and that is Monster Tree by Sarah Allen. I have really enjoyed some of this author's other work, so I'm really excited to get to this one. It's supposed to be like Stranger Things meets A Monster Calls by Patrick Ness. So if either one of those things seem up your alley, this book may be too. This follows a boy who must protect his neighborhood from a malevolent monster tree while dealing with the recent loss of his father. So you are going to deal with grief and healing in this book, but there is also like this uniting force of friendship, which I love. So I'm really excited to get to this one this spooky season. Then I have another new release, which is The Night Train by Lorelei Savrin, which is another favorite spooky middle grade author for me. This one is said to be great for fans of small spaces. It's also giving Lindsay Currie vibes, if I'm being honest. So if either of those are up your alley, again, this may be the book for you. So this follows twins who inherit this gift from their recently deceased grandmother who can see ghosts. And this gift is meant to help them help ghosts like find peace. So it's giving Ghost Whisperer also if you grew up with that show. But this town that they live in has this historical train wreck, and like they do a reenactment of it every year or every so often on the anniversary of it. The twins in this book have parents who have this like home renovation show, and they renovate these really old homes. And the one that they're about to do is by these train tracks that is obviously connected to this historical train wreck. And so I believe they are going to probably see a ghost and try to unravel what really happened in this train wreck all these years ago. So that's why I feel like it's giving Lindsay Currie vibes. I don't know if it's based on anything, but specifically this is giving me like scratch vibes. So I'm really excited to check this one out. And this next book is giving me probably more cozy fantasy vibes versus spooky middle grade vibes. And I think it's because of the cover. That is Ravenfall by Kaylin Josephson. This author has written some YA books. I think the Stormcrow duology was one that she wrote. And I've had this book for a couple of years now. And it has unfortunately fallen under the category of I've owned you for a while and I still haven't picked you up. And I keep buying more books. So I'm hoping to read this one this year. So this is supposed to be like Halloween Town meets Supernatural, which sounds like such a good time. This follows a magical Airbnb at the crossroads of the human world and the other world. There are two kids with supernatural powers and an ancient Celtic creature trying to destroy the world by Halloween night. It also has dual POV, which is always my favorite. So I think this will be a good one. I've just been really nervous to get to it. I do believe the author has a second book out in this series as well. So if I like this one, I can continue on. And the last middle grade book is another new release called Exit Nowhere by Juliana Brandt. This one reminds me, again, of Lindsay Currie. See, Lindsay Currie, literally her vibes are everywhere. Like, everybody's taking notes. I love it. So this reminds me of her recent release, which was The Mystery of Locked Rooms, but this one seems a little bit spookier because it's like an escape room in a haunted house. So this is supposed to be a little bit like The Haunted Mansion meets The Ultimate Escape Room. And there are 4 kids who take on a series of childhood games to make it through this haunted house. I am so pumped for this one. I'm definitely gonna have to get to it. Moving on to some categories of books that like I don't typically gravitate towards, but that I would like to read a few books in these genres a little bit more often. So the first one is historical fiction, and I am really pumped for these 3 books. I don't know if I'll get to them all this fall, but I will at least aim to get to one of the 3 of them. So the first one is The Last Bookshop in London by Madeline Martin. I have had this on my TBR for quite some time, but this year I am planning to buddy read it with a friend. So I feel like I'll be able to get through it. This is inspired by the true World War II history of the few bookshops to survive the Blitz. It is a timeless story of wartime loss, love, and the power of storytelling to unite a community. This really does give me the Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Pie Society vibes. If you know, you know. That book is one of the books that got me back into reading as an adult, and I love that it was about a community of people who were struggling through war, and what brought them together was books. And this seems very similar to that, and so I'm really excited for it. It's also really short, so it seems really readable and approachable for me as someone who doesn't read this genre a lot. And man, I really want to love it. I don't always rate adult historical fiction very highly. I have loved some middle grade historical fiction, but I'm going to hold out hope that this will be a hit for me. Next, we have a recent new release called Beyond Ivy Walls by Rachel Fordham. I have loved this author's other book, The Letter Tree, and I'm hoping that this will fill the void for more of her books that I've wanted, because I read another one of her books and I liked it, but I didn't love it. So I really hope this one is going to be good for me. This is supposed to be a little bit reminiscent of Beauty and the Beast. It takes place in Iowa in 1903, and it follows Otis, who is a recluse with scars that he tries to hide, and Sadie, who is working in a duster factory and is living in an abandoned building where she meets Otis, and then they become friends, and then they become more. So there is a little bit of a mystery to the story as well, because we know that Otis has scars, but we don't really know what happened to him, so you find that out throughout the story. So I love that she weaves that in as well. And again, I really want this to fill the void that I have from The Letter Tree by her, because it was so good. So hopefully I can get to this one soon. And the last historical fiction I have is a Christian historical fiction, and that is When the Day Comes by Gabrielle Meyer. I know so many people in the book community have loved this series. This is the first in the Timeless series, and I'm nervous about it, but I'm also very intrigued. So this is a historical romance with time travel about a woman who lives 2 lives. One in 1774 colonial Williamsburg, Virginia, and the other in 1914 New York. Every day she wakes up in a different time, and by the time she turns 21, she has to decide which life she wants to continue living. I'm pretty sure there's also a love story in both timelines. I cannot imagine this happening. Like, I cannot, well, I mean, obviously it's not going to happen, but I cannot imagine being in this position to choose between 2 lives, especially if they're 2 really good lives and they're in different time periods. So I think this is going to be a super fun series to read. I think in the other books you follow different characters who also are trying to choose between 2 timelines. So I'm really excited for this one. And the last category for today's video is going to be classics. I only have 2 of these, and they are ones that I am really excited for. Now, one of these has been on my TBR for every year since, like, I don't know when. It's probably since I watched the movie, because I really love the movie. I've seen it 2 or 3 times, and that is Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. I don't know why, but I feel like this is a book. I don't know if you guys do this, but there's certain months that I'm like, I will only read this book in this month. And for whatever reason, I only want to read this book in November. So I have to read this November, because every November I keep putting it off. And I do think that I'm really going to like it. And I know some people have read this and they didn't like it, but I've watched the movie again at least 2 times, maybe 3, and I've loved it every single time. It is about this woman who, she was working for like a socialite lady, and she was like her maid or something to that effect. And she ends up meeting this man, and she falls in love with him, and they get married. And she goes back to Manderley, which is his estate. And the thing about him is he's a widower. And when she gets to Manderley, she feels like the place is haunted by his former wife. She is just like everywhere. There's just, the memory of her is everywhere. And it's like, is she haunting the place or what's happening? And there's also a little bit of a mystery around like her death and things like that. There's just some creepy vibes. It's very gothic, and I really, really love the movie, so I really want to love the book. I feel like I can get through the book a little bit better being a classic because I've seen the movie. I know there may be some differences, but sometimes getting through a classic can be hard because they're written a little bit in an older writing style, but this is a more modern classic, so I just really want to read this one and finally get it off my TBR, and I really do want to enjoy it. And the last one that I have on my list is Autumn Chills by Agatha Christie, which is a compilation of autumn short stories. So I have been getting into Agatha Christie this year. I really enjoy trying to solve the mysteries that she presents. So I feel like trying to read a few short stories throughout the season will be a fun time. And those are all of the books on my fall TBR. You will have to let me know if you've heard of any of these books, or if any of these books are on your fall TBR, or if you got any new recommendations today. These are just the books that, even if I don't get to all of them, they are the books that in this current moment I'm the most excited for. I just love the fall season. It is one of my favorites. It's one of the most beautiful in my opinion. I know like it brings us into winter, which for me means seasonal depression, but before that, it's just like a good time. I like happy change, and fall is such a happy change time for me, and I love all the fall reads. So I'm definitely hoping to snuggle up with a good book, hopefully one of these this fall. So if you made it this far in the video and you enjoyed and just want to leave a comment for support, go ahead and leave a fall leaf emoji down below in the comments and let me know what your favorite autumn read is. As always, I appreciate you guys so much, and I will see you in my next video. Bye, friends.